G'day, folks. And here I am, right at the very top. It's unusual. Normally Andrina's there. Andrina, by the way, is being diagnosed with double pneumonia, so hence the reason she's having another week off. And we'd like to say to you all your love and prayers, so it'd be fantastic. She's finally got to the farm overnight. So anyway, tonight's guest is all the way from Brisbane, Australia. And the show is actually called Refugee, to the supply of tiny homes. And I've said refugee, but in fact, the family was one of the original British migrants who came to Australia on the 10-pound POM system. And they were placed into refugee camps, if you want to call it as such, immigration detention. No, immigration welfare. Anyway, the bottom line is, it's stopped for me to say anymore. It's now handing it over to Ian, because it's been an amazing journey for the two of us. We entered into a phone call back in March, I think, this year, and from there we just carried on, and we've been key players in the cycle of life. So to welcome to you, Ian.
Thanks, Jeff. How are you tonight? All good?
Been fantastic. Yeah, so you better bring everybody on board with how we came together. It's just an amazing story, isn't it? Eh?
Do you want me to tell it, Jeff, or do you want to tell it?
It's your show.
All right. Look, I came to Australia in 1965 as an immigrant, as Jeff just said. We moved on to Wacol Hostel, and we lived there in a community. It was communal living, communal eating, communal everything. I actually met my wife there. She was 15, I was 18. Stayed there till 1968. We moved out of the hostel. In 1969, we got married. We're still together, Jeff, by the way. And then I got offered a service station in Warwick. When I arrived in this country, I came with my parents. We had £100. We came with nothing but the clothes we were wearing. From there on, I got a job as a mechanic. I'd done 3 years in England as an apprentice mechanic, and came across here thinking I was almost qualified. I got a job at a place called Howson's in Mount Gravatt. To get there, I had to hitchhike from Wacol to Wollongabba, then get a tram from Wollongabba all the way up to Mount Gravatt. That used to take me about an hour and a half each way. And I loved it. I had a great time. I was a first-year apprentice again, by the way. They wouldn't accept my qualifications. And I probably stayed there for 6 months. And then at the end of that period, they asked me to take these motors and gearboxes, which sounds trivial to you, out of one motor car and put it in the other. I did it. Then I went and asked for a rise. And they said, don't be stupid, you're a first-year apprentice. So I said, well, I'm doing mechanics work. They said, no. So I said, well, stick to your job. And I left. And I was labouring. I was painting houses. I was digging trenches. I was doing all sorts, selling encyclopedias in Canberra. The thing is, the difference nowadays is, in my day, you get out, you do anything. And you've got to have a positive attitude. Then I got my first opportunity. That was in probably, 1969. A Shell company offered me the Shell Roadhouse in Warwick. I had no money. I worked everything we made. Mum and Dad had moved to Gales, and we were renting a house in Gales. They gave me this opportunity to take over the Shell Roadhouse in Warwick, and they financed me. They gave me every cent. And that was the start of my business career. We went on from there, stayed there 5 years, took a couple of years off, took over the Shell Roadhouse in Mount Isa, then bought the depots in Mount Isa, Cloncurry, Julie Creek. We went great. We did fantastic. And we made money. I came back to Brisbane in 1983, built a house myself, house for my parents, and we were going good. Then the climate changed, and I got into real estate. And I did that for a few years, made a bad investment, had to sell the homes and start again. which we did. In 2000, after many years in real estate, selling overseas, internationally, in New Zealand, all over Asia, I started my own company called Gateway to Queensland Homes. And we specialized in selling to people from New Zealand, setting them up in Australia. It was great. And then probably 2017, I got out of that. And when the pandemic hit, I'm thinking, this is mad. What do we do? And we got through the pandemic, and I was building houses at the time and doing small developments. And so the pandemic came, and all of a sudden, building costs, land costs, everything went through the ceiling. So people couldn't afford to do anything. Now, in 2017 also, I got diagnosed with a stage 4 metastatic malignant melanoma, 3 big lumps in my neck, which devastated me. They gave me 3 to 6 months to live. And I said, they wanted to have radiation and chemotherapy. And I said, no, I'm not doing it. So I went overseas and I got a different type of treatment. And that was 7 years ago. And here I am tonight talking to you. So I got fixed up. I didn't die in 3 to 6 months like I was told I would. And it made me think, it changed me. And I'm thinking, I've got everything I need. You know, I don't need anything else. So, and then the pandemic went. And then I'm driving down the Mount Lindesay Highway and I'm seeing people living in tents. And I'm seeing people living in caravans, in parks. And I'm thinking, what is going on here? This is rubbish. This shouldn't be happening. But they can't afford houses. They can't afford the rent. The government's doing nothing. And I said to my wife, Carol, and I said to my son, Chris, we've got to be able to do something here. We've got to do, maybe pay back, help people. And my granddaughter came to me one day and said, Granddad, I've got my mother-in-law coming up and we can't find a house for her to rent. And there's nowhere for her to live. What can we do? So I thought, well, leave it with me. I won't mention names. I said, leave it with me. I'll see what I can find out. So I started doing some research. And I found that I could bring these little houses into the country. And I could sell them for $35,000. I don't want to make a lot of money. We're not talking about making money here. We're talking about helping people. And so I started doing that. We got one there. She's living in it now. She's really happy. But then it started making me think, why isn't the government doing this? Why are they spending millions and millions and millions on these centres and putting people in hotels when there would be 1 million quarter-acre properties around this country where they could put these, where they could incentivize people to put these on their properties, would do 2 things. You know, people can't afford to live at the moment. They can't afford to buy food. But if they had one of these little places in their back garden, they could rent it off, especially elderly people that are living on their own. They've got no company. If you put one of these in the back garden, they rent it. So she's got an income, or the family's got an income. There's someone else got somewhere to live, so they don't have to live in a tent or a caravan. I don't understand why there's not more support from the federal, the government, the councils. As soon as we started talking about putting these granny flats or temporary residence in people's backyard, all of a sudden the council said, well, no, that's not going to work. The council now is starting to charge $10,000 to $22,000 to give permission for you to do that, when the people are already paying rates in their own home. Why aren't they allowing them to do this? These homes, they've got double glazed windows. They're insulated. They meet every green criteria you can think of. They're not big. They're cheap. They're easy to put up. You can, like my granddaughter and her husband put this one up that you are now seeing on that screen behind Jeff in 2 days themselves. It's so easy to do. So I said to Chris, we've got to get out there. We've got to advertise this. We've got no overheads. We don't have to make a lot of profit. Let's see if we can help people get into houses instead of living in tents, which is what we are now trying to do. But the councils don't help. They don't care. I had a friend in Warwick that lived on a big property that had 6 caravans in his property. And there was people homeless in Warwick. You know what happened? The council turned up his place and said, these people can't live here. He was feeding them. He wasn't charging rent. He was letting them stay there till they could find a rental. The council said no. He kicked them off his property. And that's where we're going. If this doesn't change in the regions, out there in the rural areas, these things will give people accommodation so they can work in those areas. You know, it's in Brisbane alone, I don't know how many quarter-acre properties there would be where they've got plenty of room in the back. Put one of these in, give someone somewhere to live, make them feel human again. It's ridiculous what's happening. I don't know if that's the story, Jeff, but realistically, it affects me. It makes me feel mad when the government and the councils, state and federal and local councils, are not helping. People like are living in the park in Bow Desert, down at Stockley, they're living in a park. You go anywhere around Brisbane, West Brisbane, they're living in parks. They should not be living in parks. The government should be subsidising this type of product. I don't care who they do it through, but they should be subsidising this type of product that can be put up for next to nothing and not spend millions of dollars on camps that are useless. This gives people independence. This gets people living together with family. This achieves everything we need to achieve to make this Australian country good again, like when I first came to it, Jeff.
Right.
Sorry.
No, that was a very quick brief. But let's start from the very beginning. So you moved out of Salford in the UK. And
yes, I did.
You're 65, you're 18 years old. You moved to this Wacol Immigration Camp. Yeah?
Yep.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, all you got was basically a donga, well, a little hut which had beds in it, and that's all you had because you had to leave that sleeping accommodation, go into the camp where you had shared kitchen facilities and shared toilet and shower facilities. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Right.
But it was a great community feeling. You met people, you made friends for life. But it wasn't only immigrants from England, they were from Europe, they were from all over. People that paid their £10 to come to this country. And you could live in that hostel for up to 2 years, right? You had to get a job very quickly and you paid a rent at the hostel. But the food was supplied.
You paid rent, did you say, or you didn't pay rent?
Not before you got a job.
Okay,
once you got a job, they took a percentage for thing. But I mean, I don't want to sound blasé about this, but in the 60s, it was a different lifestyle, mate. My mother in England was a manager, personal secretary, a personal assistant. She came to the hostel. The only job she could get, because her qualifications weren't in, she was cleaning the toilets. My father managed a milliner's firm in England. There's none of them here. He ended up being a gardener on the hostel. The government gave him a job. And I've already told you what mine was. I've never picked up a tool from that day. Well, only to do my own cars. But no, that's what it was like in them days. And then they actually helped you find a home. That's why around the Goodners and the Gales and the Woodridges and the Inalas, there's lots and lots of immigrants. It's a complete...
Burpengary and Murrayfield and North Side.
That's exactly right, on the north side. So it was different in them days. But now...
Well, hang on a second, just stop there.
Yeah.
So what you're describing as your Wacol Immigration Camp,
yes,
was no different to Australians going to a beachside camping caravan park. And if you had a caravan, well, obviously you had a kitchen facility in your caravan. But generally speaking, if you were camping, you go and use the same shared toilets and the same shared bathrooms and the same shared kitchen facilities. And families would come for Christmas holidays, Easter holidays. And that's where people built relationships, you know. Same as what you were just describing as new immigrants coming into Australia. Even though, you know, you came in and you paid a £10 to come in, and the people who have been coming in on the boats have been paying upward of 30,000 Australian dollars or 15,000 US dollars to come on a boat. You guys came on £10, and then when you came down, you went onto the register as a member of Australia. So you didn't have to go and become Australian citizens. You just put yourself down on electoral roll, and then later on you could actually apply for an Australian passport.
Yes.
So things have moved on because we've gone and built up a big, huge database of public servants, whereas in the original days, the federal government survived purely on wholesale sales tax and duties coming for goods coming into Australia. That was the only income that the federal government made at the time. Yeah. But what I was interested when you rang up and spoke to me back in March, April, and you told me what your intention was to do. And you're one of those guys who talks the talks and walks the walks, and that's why you're on the show tonight. I mean, purely because synchronicity of Andrina being out with double pneumonia. And so we've actually shifted all the guests backwards so that they could be there for Andrina. We've come along and thinking, well, hang on a sec. This is a great story because it's a full circle of coming to Australia, wearing basically your clothes and the shoes and whatever you got. And then you've had to make do of it without any Centrelink payment, any major hotel facilities all thrown at you. The amount of income that's thrown at all these refugees coming in Australia, all those folks that came in from after World War II, whether you're from England, whether you're the Dutch, whether you're the Greeks, whether you're the Italians, yeah, or the Poles, or the Danish, Swedes, you name it, they came into Australia, yeah, and they all got together and built Australia, yeah. That's what we did. Yeah. Now, let's just go and have a look at the fact that the federal government 4 years ago, decided that they were going to build another concentration camp. Is that the right word? Probably not. Well, it's concentrated in the sense that it was concentrated in Brisbane, yes, and we're talking about a facility. It's called Pinkenba, and it's close to the airport. It's close to the shipping terminals, but it was actually previously part of Australian federal government's Damascus barracks, and they went and spent a large sum of money, an awful sum of money, and they went and built this amazing bloody facility. And we're going to show you some footage of it, which before we come on the airwaves, that's nothing what you got on Wacol, was it? Nothing what you got on Wacol.
I would never have left.
No.
I would never have left you if it was like what I've just seen.
Where are we? The man job we went into, there it is there. This place here, Brisbane Immigration Transit Centre. So they still gave it the name Immigration. You guys got called Immigration, yeah? It's a pretty sweet place. Holds 500 beds, yeah? Completely empty, yeah, for the last 4 years. It was supposed to be for those people who had COVID. Instead of being in hotels, they could put them in here. But let's just have a look. The guy who's the Lord Mayor of Brisbane, Adrian Schimmer, here's his website here, put it up. He goes and puts up these photos. I mean, it's pretty schmick, isn't it? Hey?
Yeah.
Hey? And then, look at that. Did you have a sink in your bloody room?
Don't get me going.
Did you have a refrigerator? Hey?
Oh, mate. This is a joke.
Look at this industrial commercial kitchen. Stainless steel. Mate, in your days, you'll probably be on Formica or whatever, plywood, yeah?
Not even that, mate.
Yeah. So let's go into here and let's have a look at a tour of this facility that was built for multi-millions of dollars, and it's empty. Yeah. So I won't put the audio on it. People can just visualize. So here's a place where all those people that you're talking about living in tents and then roughing it under the bridges, yeah, Same scenario that you guys went through in 1960. I mean, if you're a lawyer, what do they say? There's been a rule of thumb. There's been a precedent being set. Yeah.
Yeah.
And look, it's got. Did you see that bloody air conditioning unit at the top there?
Yeah, I did. Don't worry.
Did you have air conditioning in 1960? No, you just had the window.
No.
You're lucky to have a fan.
Look at our fly screens, mate. None of things. And believe me, when your plum come from England in December, you need that cooling.
Yeah.
Look at this.
This is anybody watching this. This is empty, mate. This is the Lord Mayor of Brisbane getting a tour. And of course, it's Brisbane City Council, and it's actually owned by the federal government. So he's got no jurisdiction over this federal land, you know. But look at this.
Wow.
I mean, that's a king-size bed. I mean, you know, obviously mum, dad, and you could top and tail with kids, couldn't you? There's a family suite by the looks of it.
And it's empty.
So empty, yeah.
But can I just say something? Just
go on.
While you've been talking, and you mentioned these people are paying $30,000 to get their boat to come across here. I was speaking to someone the other day that's involved with all that, and they catch these boats, right? And they either take the people off and destroy the boats, or they go. And one of the captains on the boats, and this came from a friend of mine, said, well, it doesn't matter. They're all owned by the same person in Indonesia. And he will buy another 27 boats to replace these ones that you take off us. So, and that's a fact that came from a very high source. So, listening to you talk before, saying these people are paying $30,000, there'd be an easy fix to this. And this is going to sound stupid to people, but why don't we do the boats ourselves? Why don't we charge them $30,000, which would cover the cost of putting them up when they get here, and everyone's a winner, and then it takes it away from the crime gangs. I mean, why doesn't the federal government look at that? If they're going to keep coming, why don't we take control of it? Why don't we charge them? It's £400 or £10. Charge them the $30,000. I mean, that's just out grasping at things from our little conversation now, because I'd never thought of it till you brought that up. But I mean, the simple solution is take it over. Let Australia do it. There would be no cost to the taxpayer then, because if everyone paid $30,000 coming in, they're paying for themselves when they get here. Not the taxpayers paying for it.
Yeah, but these people are claiming refugee status. But at the end of the day, you know, when you start monitoring them, you find they make a phone call and they're economic refugees. That's why
That's exactly right.
You know, maintain $30,000. And probably, you know, they're coming from Pakistan or they're coming from India. They made their journey. So they've got a passport in the first place to get to Indonesia, and then they just toss it away. And so it becomes a cost to Australia. But they haven't come through legitimate means. The ones who come to legitimate means in today's world, they may have to pay upward of $8,000, you know, in order to get a business visa. I know you can pay more for a business visa, but just to get apply for a visa status and then apply for citizenship. So it's quite a substantial amount of money. But what people don't realize is that in the Rothschild system, which Australia operates on, because there's no gold standard, they set it up that humans are now chattels. And so under the Rothschild system, they set up the Federal Reserve Bank, and then males are worth $70 million and females are worth $40 million. And so that becomes your working capital. And then you've got to ask the Treasury how much it's going to take to run the country. They then give you the announcement, and then they say, well, excuse me, what are you going to charge us as an interest rate to borrow money to run the country? And so they say, oh, it's going to cost you $1 billion. And then they say, well, how much are we going to get from wages and salaries? Get $750 million. The rest has got to come from other sources. But when someone comes legitimately, knocks on our door, and they come into Australia, their bond, when they were born, and so if the male's worth $70 million, it gets transferred to Australia. So it becomes under the Australian bond. So then the Australian government can then use it as a working capital. But when these folks are coming in as so-called refugee status and coming on the boats, and they've destroyed their documentation, so we have no way of moving their bond into our Australian Federal Reserve so that we can then use it as working capital. And so we're spending all this money in these detention centres in Cocos Islands and Manus and over in Nauru. So legitimately, those people who've come in, like yourselves in the 60s, you were given an opportunity to have a go. And the question now is, these people are not really given a go. They're just given handouts after handouts after handouts. And there's no real incentive to get out there and do it. And then what happens is the federal Labor government has gone in and turned on the tap since COVID restrictions and people couldn't come in. So they allowed over 500,000 people into Australia. That tap has just got to the point, where do you put them? And of course, if you've just got this place that we just mentioned, it's only got 500 beds. Well, we're talking 500,000 that's coming into Australia. 500 beds is not going to do the job, is it? So you've got to stop the slot. You've got to stop the flow that's coming into Australia so that you can actually rebuild Australia and look at this infrastructure. And you're going to have to look at, removing the councils from actually getting involved in actually issuing permits. And so that it comes back to a one government source that just overrides everything. Yeah.
The only chance we've got in the future is if something like that happens and the people cannot afford to build. Like, I'm a builder. Like in 2019, you'd sell a house for about $1,200 a meter. That's what it cost you to finish completely. You're close to $2,000 a meter now. So all your first-home buyers without subsidies are never going to get in a house. Old people are never going to be able to stay in their houses because they won't be able to afford it. We've got massive problems. There's no rentals. There's no houses that people can afford to buy unless they've sold one and got the income today. But that's not going to solve our problem. If we want to get people off the streets and don't end up like America, we need to have a solution that is cheap. That's the only thing that made me look at this product, because it can be done cheap. A house the same size as the one behind you, built as a granny flat, now, if I was to rely on a normal builder, would cost between $150,000 and $180,000. People can't afford that. We have to relax and let people build these things and stop councils controlling it so people can survive and have somewhere decent to live. I've decided that's what my goal is, to achieve that. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to stir up everything till these type of things are allowed, because they are good. They're insulated. They have double glazed windows. They've got beautiful bathrooms in them for 20% of the price. Why wouldn't we do it? Why wouldn't these be in all the regional areas? Why wouldn't these be in the big blocks on the acreage and things like that, so people can either make a living or give a family member somewhere to live? That's where we've got to go.
Hey, so people, if they buy one, really got to have property to put it on, yeah?
Yeah.
Right.
And it's
so are the banks prepared to give people money to buy a block of land?
It's getting harder and harder. So the only solution I see is not people buying a block of land now, but people that have already got the land that can use it for this type of thing to help other people out and to create a small income, mate. Like, people are charging $600, $700 a week rent for rubbish.
Keep going.
So something like this, you can charge $250, $300 a week rent. It's still good investment for the person that's put it up on their property. And it's great cheap rental for someone that's living in a tent or a caravan. It's a no-brainer. The government should be doing this, not people like me. The government should be doing this instead of spending millions and millions and millions on stuff they're going to get no return from. This is like when I came across the 60s, the state government owned housing commission houses everywhere. Now you're waiting 12 months to get a housing commission house, as they call them. That can be blown away by putting this type of product up that you can have up in 5 days or 2 days. Problem solved. I don't understand. It's ludicrous. I don't understand why everyone's not doing it.
Yeah, but if we come back to the council, and it feels like we're bashing them, but with good common sense, we've had Queenslanders who are living in rural areas who've gone and created fire breaks around their properties, only get fined by the councils for putting a fire break. I mean, in the last fires that came through 2.5 years ago, that guy got fined with $140,000 up in central Queensland, out by Rockhampton. $140,000. The fire went through that whole valley. He was the only house left standing in that whole valley. Everybody else got burnt to smithereens. Where's the greenies? Where's the councils in that scenario? It's just...
I was trying to not get into politics, mate, but I mean, absolutely ludicrous. We are controlled. Even on your own property, they tell you what to do. The council, regional or local, they should have no control of what you do on your land that you are paying rates on.
Well, before you go any further, I mean, these, I got good mates in the shipping industry, and they're bringing in all these wind farms, all these big turbines and all that stuff. And they're coming into Gladstone, they're coming into Brisbane, they're going to Port Kembla, massive units, take 65 litres of, or 65 litres or 60, 65 litres of bloody lubricant. And then they've got to fire them up with a diesel generator. But them, along with the solar farms, if you're a farmer and you go down there and bloody start removing some trees either for a fire break, boom, you get fined. But these guys are going in, carte blanche, just removing all the bloody fauna and flora to build these humongous big solar farms and building in the roads to go and put these big, huge wind farms. What's going on here? I mean,
that's right. It's mate. I really don't want to get into it, but there's something stinks about the whole thing. It's wrong.
All right, so you come back to the point, someone has to have property in the first place in order to build that. So somewhere along the line, how does a young family or a young person get in there to buy a property when they've got to obviously live with mum and dad until they're 30, so they get sort of minimum rent, but then they've got to get a job that's going to give them an income to go out and buy the property. So they're going to have that, and then they've got some surety then to use as a deposit to borrow the money to get a house. Most lenders are saying, well, we'll give you the finance when you've got a house and land, because you're not having two sets of incomes that you've got to actually, two sets of expenditures, one for the property that you got it on a chattel arrangement, and then you got another one for borrowing the money for the house. So, and then you probably got another one for the car that you've gone and got it on HP or leased or whatever. So, it's easy for the finance company to come along and say, well, I'll give you the money for a house and land package. So
that's getting harder and harder, Jeff, to be honest with you. It's the bank of mum and dad now. That's the only chance these young people have got. And that's the other reason I'm doing what I'm doing, because the bank of mum and dad can put this type of thing on their property, increase the value of their property. Their kids can live in it rent-free, which enables them to save everything so they can, in 5 or 10 years' time, get into something. Unless they do something like that, if they're living in paying rent of $6 a week, they have got no chance. If they're living in mum and dad's, in their own house, own privacy, they can save every cent. That's why it's called the bank of mum and dad, my friend.
Okay, so you've got mum and dad's bank. So they got to be on older properties. So if you are in a metropolitan area, we no longer see quarter-acre blocks. We used to have 1,500 squares. That's been dropped down. I mean, you get these villa blocks now that are 400 squares. I mean, and basically Mediterranean style.
It's not going to work. You've got to go. There's still thousands and thousands of quarter-acre blocks around. Thousands of them. People are selling them because they're knocking down the houses and building new houses with millions of dollars. But if those people could make an income out of that quarter of an acre, they wouldn't sell them. Like they could retire off the bit of rent that they're getting off this place if the council allow them to just put it in. It's more appropriate in rural areas and acreage areas, but the opportunities everywhere are wide open. Aren't you sick of hearing people saying they can't afford to buy groceries because they can't live on the pension? You imagine if you had something like this in the backyard that gave them an extra $200 or $300 a week, you would have no poverty. You would have no people screaming at the government. It's just common sense.
Yeah, but you and I both know that the bloody Centrelink/pension board is going to say you've got a derivative income coming here, so we're going to reduce your pension. Yeah.
And that's why we have to look at the whole system to start motivating people to do things. I'm a very positive person. I've been through a lot of ups and downs, Jeff. I've lost things twice, come back again. At 65, I started again, and now I'm self-sufficient. I don't owe anything because I'm a positive person. My kids come to me, and I say to them, "Oh God, they're going through this and they're going through that." And say, when it's the worst you can get, you know what you say? You say, "Thank God it's only that bad. Let's move on." And if you go into depression, like a lot of people are doing now, they need help. They need someone around them that have got a positive attitude that say, "Hey, you can do this," which is what I do with my grandkids, what I do with my children, and I keep them up there with that positive attitude. I don't rely on the government. I've never been on Centrelink. None of my kids have ever been on Centrelink. So we support ourselves because we get out there. I made them go to work at 15 instead of getting all these degrees. And now 3 of them have got their own businesses. All left school at 15.
Just for our global audience, Centrelink is a form of a federal government pension. In America, you probably get food stamps. The UK, you'd get a form of unemployment benefit or old age pension, same as in New Zealand. So I just want to make people aware that Centrelink relates to a government department that issues out the pensions. Just playing the devil advocate there. So we've got this building that's in my background behind me. It came on site. It just needed a crane then to put it on the stumps, so you had to put the stumps up. You put it in. It's already got the plumbing in. You just had to then connect it to the sewage line. Does it require a plumber?
Yeah. All they require is a plumber and an electrician.
Right.
Electrician just to hook it up, plumber to plumb it in. Everything else is done. Everything is there, ready to go.
So with the electrician, then you just get the major electricity board that's out on the street. They go and put a power pole in there, or they go and put an underground box there.
They can actually just hook it into their normal system in the house. Like these are built like a caravan. I'll say that word, like a caravan. So they don't use a lot of power. The power inlet's there. It's just a plug-in, or you can hardwire it. The plumbing, everything comes out the back, just straight connects up to the water, the sewage. Right.
Okay. So let's come back to the power. So what you're saying is like a caravan that goes into a powered site, either at home or at a caravan park, just an ordinary 3-plug thing or 2-plug, depending on what part of the world you're in, that can come out of the existing house.
Yes.
If you're on the block, say if you're at mum and dad's place, put it on, boom, boom. Or alternatively, you just go and get a power box and then run a meter and boom, boom.
Right.
Yeah. Or you can be off grid with a complete solar system on your roof.
Yes, you can.
With
the options there's thousands of options.
Yeah, so if you're going to go with a solar system, 10 kV with the battery and all that stuff, you're looking what, $14,000. Set that up.
Oh no! You can get a good system now. I've just done it. I've just done one for about $12,000. Jeff, that's batteries and solar. Right.
And that, because now the solar panels are getting quite substantial now. You get probably 500 watt solar panels, can you?
I've got 20 kilowatts at the moment.
20 kilowatts
battery.
Jeez, you could be running a factory there, brother.
Yes, mate. Look, what I'm getting to is, right, if people buy a caravan, to buy a new caravan now, yes, anything between 60 and 90 grand, right? An RV up to $250,000, right?
Sure.
To live in a caravan. which is lots of people are doing.
Yeah.
That house behind you, I can supply for 35,000 Australian dollars.
Okay, so when they say 35,000 Australian dollars, the first question is going to be, is that on my block of land? And you'd have to say, no, that'd be from our Brisbane base.
Well, I'll deliver within a certain circumference of Brisbane.
Right.
But I've got deals going with transport companies. It doesn't cost a fortune, Jeff, to do it. And
look, so you just need to let them know the house doesn't come like the way it's been put. No, that's actually concertinaed out. It's like those big RVs that you see at the circuses, and they come out on the sides. Yeah. So it's really in the central.
If you look at the picture behind you, see those windows on the doors?
Yeah.
Everything falls down to that size. So the first thing you do is you come in and you lift the roof up. The second thing you do is fold the floor down. The third thing you do is fold all the walls out. They all lock into place, all bolt together, done in less than 2 days.
Right. So the next question is from the building standards for, say, I'm talking about Queensland here for our listeners. So Queensland's a very substantial, large state. So let me just pull up the, we've got a map for Queensland. Just hang on a sec. Let's do that so that it's for our overseas audience. So here's Australia, and we're talking Queensland. So if I just run the cursor around here, that's I think you can fit England in there 7 times. Yeah.
8 times, Jeff. 8.
8. Now there you go. So the point of reference is the equator is just running. There's the equator running across there, and then just down here is we got the Tropic of Capricorn. Yeah. So we've got Tropic of Cancer at the top, Tropic of Capricorn, and so we normally get the build-up of cyclones coming in here from the Port Moresby, Solomons, Fiji. They come in on this angle here on the Coral Sea at Queensland, and so we have a wind rating. And so building codes have a wind rating, and so W69, isn't it? W68, W69 is the wind rating.
Yep.
And I think if you go up, go on.
Sorry, go on. Carry on.
So we're down here, W68, and up here is about W74 or W71 for the Northern Territory, because they get really potent bloody cyclones. So what's your homes?
They've got a wind rating up to 110 kilometers an hour, right? On the standard product. They're fire rated because they're all insulated. When it comes down to local councils, every council is different. So if you want to meet council regulations, we fetch in a 2.4 high ceiling. They have to be bolted down. We're working with certifiers right now because every council is different. Logan are happy with these, but other councils are not. So everyone's an individual. People in rural areas, they don't care. They just put them on as temporary accommodation. And you can do that with these. If you don't want to go through a council on one of these, you can actually put that on a trailer. So it's classed as a caravan. So the trailer goes through the middle and folds out. So where those stumps are is all supports coming down on a trailer with wheels on. There's a lot of options. So everyone's different. Everyone wants something different. So we treat each person individually. We will tell them whether we think their council will accept them or not and what they have to do. All you really need to do is get a certifier, which is what we are working on now. The council make it so hard. So we've just got to find a way around that, which is what we are doing. That's the trailer. Now that folds out. That picture you showed before of that one with the flat roof, that was actually on a trailer. If you go back to the house you showed before, okay. That trailer folds completely out.
No, hang on a sec. Hang on. That one there.
No.
Is it
the one you showed was in the factory, was on a trailer.
Oh, that one. Oh, yeah, I got it. That's the one.
Right, you see the trailer, you got the steps, see the wheels underneath. That is all part of the trailer, all those supports. That trailer is $10,000. You can't do much about that. But if you want it close to the caravan, you get one of those. And then it's all full. Pardon?
You have to have that, don't you?
The frame is part of the trailer. So everyone's individual. Someone might like that.
So with the trailer and all that stuff, I mean, do you have to get an import permit for Australian infrastructure to be able to drive?
Yeah, we do. We do.
Yep. Okay, so then you could just hitch it up. See you later. Drive off.
You wouldn't want to tow it, but what it does, it overcomes the temporary dwelling, making it into a caravan, as long as it's on wheels. That's what it does.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I remember going to the Tiny Home exhibition in Brisbane here, and they mentioned the fact that the councils just weren't coming to the party. You know, like
making it very hard, Jeff.
Yeah. They're like the bloody mafia, isn't it? They're looking for their piece of action, and
believe me, in the near future, it will all change because they'll get that much pressure. They don't want people living in their parks. They're actually closing the toilets and showers off in the parks so the people that are having to live there can't use them. It'll come to a point where the councils have to accept this type of product and let people put them in, because it will solve the problem overnight of people having nowhere to live. This is the logical, easy way to do it. Doesn't cost millions. The government doesn't have to do it. Private individuals can do this and solve the rental problem and help kids save up while they're living in it in their parents' backyard.
Right. Okay, some of these quarter-acre blocks, it's a matter of getting down their driveway. Yeah.
No, we can get a crane that will lift that right over the top of a house, Jeff.
Well, they do that with swimming pools, don't they?
That's exactly what they're doing there.
Yeah. So what's our weight? Is that I see that had the bathroom and then the kitchen and all that stuff. Obviously, that was a stage set, but generally speaking, that wouldn't be in there, would it?
They're always in there. Everything comes with the bathroom. Everything comes done. Now, the 40-foot ones, they weigh 8.5 ton. These ones, about 4.5 ton.
So you just need like a 50-ton crane, 70-ton crane to lift it, take it over the
60-ton crane is what you need.
Okay. All right, mate. They got lifting lugs on those to buddy.
Yes, they have. Right in the top.
Oh, there you go. Hang on a sec. I got here. So lifting lugs are there in the corner place. Yeah,
that's exactly right.
That's a container configuration. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Now, the powers meets Australian standards, but also could be configured to the UK standards, New Zealand standards.
Yes, can. It's just how we order them from the factory, mate. We tell them what we need.
Right. Same comes for the Canadian and American viewers. Obviously, they're on 110, and they'll be working on a set of metric. They'll be using the old Imperial.
Well, they're all what do you call it? I've lost the word for the lights. They're all LEDs. They're all LED lights. So they're all on transformers anyway.
Oh, are they? Okay.
Yep.
All right. Cool. Okay. Right. So you are saying that for $35,000 in the Brisbane market, within X amount of kilometres from the Brisbane GPO, 35 grand. If you're going to go outside, I don't know, 40 kilometres.
I'll tell you what, I've just delivered one from Brisbane to Killarney, right? So that's a 2-hour trip, 2.5-hour trip.
Yep.
I got the truck and the massive crane. Total cost was less than $3,000.
All right. Okay, cool.
So it's minuscule when you're looking at it.
Yeah, okay, cool. What do people need to do? Do I put this phone number up?
Yes, mate.
That's for overseas callers. And
it's myself and my son, Chris, that run this business. If they call that number, they will speak to Chris.
Okay. Right. So then you asking for a deposit, say 20% down, 30% down? Well,
everyone's individual. It depends what they're ordering. There is other companies doing this at the moment that they require 50% deposit. We're looking at redoing that. I'll treat every customer individually, to be honest with you.
Right. Okay.
They pay a deposit when they first order. They get progress photographs all the way through the building process. And like if I've got them in stock, they're okay. Like I've got 3 or 4 of those now in stock, ready for immediate delivery. If I've got them, have them made, it usually takes 6 weeks to get them made, maybe 8 weeks total to get them into the country. I take a deposit at the beginning, and I take the balance of payment before it leaves the factory.
Okay, fair play. All right, so they can choose whatever color, or
yes, they can choose the outside colors. The people that are going to look at these will have seen these around. Most of them are just white with a flat roof on, right? Yeah. That's where the majority of these things come in. We made the decision not to do that. We made the decision to make these look like normal little log cabins. They don't normally come with a gable roof you're seeing there. They normally come with a flat roof. So they have water problems. We decided we were not doing that. So our standard product comes with the cladding on, the mirrored windows, the gable roof, so it looks like a normal house. We're not going to sell a product that I'm not happy with as a builder. We're selling a product that I know they're not going to have water problems with like they do on the flat roofs.
Yeah, sure, I understand. Hey, the plumbing for the water coming off the roof, do you have, they just clip on their own, it's for them to decide whether or not they want a rainwater tank?
If they want to save it, they can put the gutters on and get a tank if they want to. Right. And we can do that. We can organize that as well. So yeah, it's not a big thing then. As long as I know what the client wants, if it's a special order, they will get what they want. I've just designed one now where the client wants a full glass front. So where you're seeing just that glass window, he wants that all glass. And it looks magnificent. And he wants 2.6 ceilings, which you don't even get in a normal house. So that's what we're doing for him right now.
2.6. What did we used to get in the old Queenslanders, the old wooden ones? They were pretty high, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. But the average height now is 2.4. That's what the average house is.
8 footers, 8 foot.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So let's go 50% deposit and then 50% when it leaves the factory. Boom, boom. Okay, fair play. Now, a friend of mine, she was born and bred in Texas and then has been living here in Australia with her husband. Her daddy, I'm just trying to imitate her voice. My daddy, he was in property development just north of Houston. And he ended up not only being a property developer, real estate agent, but also a bank. Yeah. Yep. So in this situation, would you be financing your own bank?
I've looked at it. I've got brokers that will finance them. Doing it myself, I'm trying to keep it simple. I'm trying to keep the overheads down. If I start doing banking, I've got to employ people to control that. If I do a lot of the other things, I want to keep this so we can sell the product at the right price. So right now, there's 2 people involved. There's myself and my son. We've got no overheads. We've got no debt. That's why we can do them at this price. I'll send a challenge out to your viewers in Australia. I'll send the challenge out to your viewers, right?
Yeah, okay.
Check everyone that brings these in, and they won't find anyone that's doing them anywhere near the price that we're selling these for a similar product. There'll be a minimum of $10,000 dearer. That's a challenge. If anyone proves me wrong, tell them to call that number.
Well, if you're going to charge them an extra $10,000, you might as well give them Starlink, isn't it?
That's exactly
it. And a solar system.
Because I want to, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm hearing you. So the reason we're having the show, and it sounds like a sales advertisement, but it's not. The reason we're having this conversation, because when you told me how your mum and dad came into Australia and, it's 10-pound POMs, and you took up this Wacol Immigration Camp, and I'm thinking, like, it's no different to this generation that's been coming into Australia, but you had to work for it, and like we did. It wasn't handed to us on a plate. I mean, for us, if we wanted to do something, we had to go and get a job. So we either did the paper run, or we did the chemical. The chemist would ask us to go and deliver all the different potions out to all the different people in the neighbourhood who, because they only had one car, and either the husband took the car to work, and the wife might have got a car one day a week to go to do the shopping, because shopping was basically Monday to Friday. You might have had late night Thursday, and in this town, and the city was on a Friday night. And you might have been lucky to have, an IGA or Foursquare open until 12 o'clock on a Saturday. But generally speaking, the butcher might be open until Saturday. But, everybody did it tough, and everybody, worked to a budget, and so it was character building. I mean, we joined the Cubs, and we're going door knocking and asking if you had any beer bottles, or, we go collect the beer bottles and say, or you collect newspaper, or you go and do door to door and bob for job. If it wasn't for doing that, our football club was raising funds to build a clubhouse. And then when we got the funds, it was all hands on deck, and you got all the men and all the young boys coming in to help with the construction. And then you got all the mothers and their daughters coming around, making the scones and sandwiches and stuff, and built community. We don't get that building the community anymore. And then in the surf club, we turn up and you volunteer your services, and you go and do the chook raffles at the pub, and you do door-to-door knocking for the surf club, and then the RSL, or not the surf club art union tickets. I mean, that's all character building, isn't it? But it's not character building anymore.
That, mate, see, I'm an old bloke, right? And I've always had good work ethic, and I've always been lucky because I've worked hard. I had a lucky break. Shell Company, when they accepted me for my first business in Warwick, they lent me every cent because they had faith in me as a worker. That was the lucky break I got. That gave me my start. But they saw I was willing to work. I was willing to do anything. Carol was pregnant with our first baby, and we worked. She used to work there carrying the baby. You don't get that work ethic. People expect things for nothing nowadays. I'm not being nasty, but that's the way it is. They've not got the work. If you work hard, you will be lucky, right? If you don't expect everything to be given to you, you will be lucky. And I'm sick of the amount of people that said to me, oh, you're just lucky, Ian. Yeah, I work for it. And now I'm trying to give it back and help people, to be honest with you. Because
that's probably on the show. Yeah.
So I'm just trying to say, hey, this is an opportunity for people. Get off your backside, do something, create something for yourself. Put this in mum and dad's backyard, save up and get your own house. Because if you don't do stuff like this, you've got no chance. Because prices are not coming down.
Okay, so to just give everybody an idea, this is Warwick, and this is Brisbane. So there's an old goat track, basically. I mean, but trucks would come down through to Warwick to do the Sydney run, or what it costs to go and take the Melbourne run. But I mean, it's a fair distance away, and so to have a roadhouse, people have to understand a roadhouse, is in the similar sense of, those American movies with what's his name from Ghost. Oh, I'm just trying to think. It was a movie called Roadhouse. Yeah. So I nearly had the guy. Had a ghost. Patrick Swayze. So in Roadhouse, he was in there to clean out the bloody the roadhouse. But generally speaking, here in Australia, it's a service station that provides you with the fuel and oil and puts water in your radiator and cleans your windscreen. But you could stop there and you had the toilets and you might have had the showers there, and you had food, so you could drop in.
We had a restaurant as well there.
Yeah. So
we opened 20 hours a day for the truckies.
Yeah. So that's quite a familiar sight, both in Australia and New Zealand and the UK, and of course in America and Canada. So
I can still picture my wife stood behind the counter in the cafe in the restaurant, holding the baby, serving hamburgers. You won't see that anymore. Health and safety wouldn't let us do it anymore.
Yeah, well, the old days you'd have a station wagon or a stake, and they call them in England, and you'd pull it over, and then you have a thermos, and you have your sandwiches, and you're sitting there, and that'd be your roadside. What's the name, isn't it? Yeah, yeah. Yeah, people, had to make ends meet, didn't it? So
That's exactly right.
you didn't have the credit card like you got today. Boom, boom. Hey, it's awesome. What I liked about you when we started talking and we worked together for this length of time was how life itself, the cycle of life, how you've come into Australia, you started an immigration camp, you went through what it was like for 2 years, you built rapport with everybody else who come from other parts of the world. You ended up meeting a girl who's become your wife. You've been married for over 50 years. You've brought children into this world, and you've been thick together, ups and downs. And she's a testament to the resolve of supporting you, which is fantastic. That's a great reference for future. And when you've gone through the business world and you learned all about what it's like to be out in the country and what it's like to travel vast distances here in Australia, people don't realise that. Over in England, we would say it's just down the road. They think it's about 5 miles away. Down the road could be 300 kilometres away. 200 miles away.
It's 1,200 kilometres away, mate. When I went there.
Yeah. So and of course, Carol's and yourselves had to deal with Mount Isa and its heat and humidity. So you've done extremely well. Look, but then what was a trigger was when you got your illness, and when you had that stage 4 melanoma and the things in the side of your head here, on your neck here, and how the medical practitioners can really, what's the way? Not devil's advocate. They can be like the Aborigines and point the bone at you and say, this is what you got to do. And experts can really play mentally with your mind and so forth. But to me, it was the fortitude of you being able to travel, like either into New Zealand, but over throughout Asia and meeting people to actually invest in Australia. You've met other cultures and other ways of looking at life itself. And for you then to realize, I don't need to have radiation. I don't need to have chemo and all this stuff. I'm looking at another alternative. And, the fact that you were given 3 to 6 months prison sentence, basically, and it's now 7 years down the track. 7 years are we looking at?
Jeff, I remember the day I was down the coast when they gave me this, and the doctors are very serious now saying, no, crap, I'll sort this out. And he was really serious. And he said, you've got to take this serious, mate. If you don't go and get this ready, you're going to die. And I phoned up Carol, and my daughter was at home with her. And I said, I've got this metastatic stage 4 malignant melanoma. Right? They reckon it's going to kill me. We'll sort this out. I got home and I walked into my house and they were sat there and they were crying because they'd read and checked up what it goes on the internet. And they said, Ian, what we? I said, I know exactly what we're going to do. 3 weeks later, I flew out of this country and got the treatment I needed. 2 weeks later, I'm back in this country. And I've never had to take a medication since then. I probably shouldn't be saying this on air because it gets quite controversial.
No. We're talking about the psychological means by which these experts thrust on you that your life has a defined end date. I mean, hello, it's got an end date, and it makes you contemplate the way forward. Your resolve as a migrant, as a refugee, whatever you want to state as to go to an immigration camp in bloody Brisbane at Wacol, come through all that, hitchhike. People don't realise you didn't have a vehicle, you didn't have a boat, you had no boat to go on the Brisbane River to go up to their job. So basically, hitchhike, and you're going to go all the way into Wollongabba, so basically 30 kilometres into town in Wollongabba. And people watching the show from England, Wollongabba is short for the Gabba, which is the home of the cricket. So if you play the test match, it's always at the Gabba. So just giving you a heads up. And of course, then you take a tram to go out to Mount Gravatt. So an hour and a half journey each way. I mean, well, you don't do hitchhiking today, but the point I'm making is that that's the resolve. You met your wife down there. You didn't have to go get onto Bumblebee, Tinder, and what RSVP or whatever to find a woman. She was there delivered to you. In the same circumstance.
She was actually. We were in the community hall. There was a band playing, and this old fella and his wife walked in with this girl with the big eyes, and I thought, she's mine. And that's exactly what I think. So I sent this girl I knew, because they were new just arrived at the hospital. I sent this girl after. I said, you go and find out who she is. Tell her to come back out here. And that's how I met her. And we've been together ever since, mate.
Yeah, that's it. Bloody brilliant. So, so that aspect of you health issue, it changes your whole philosophical aspect to life, and you realize they've given you a defined end date, and you've now come back after 7 years, realizing, hello, I can do something more about my life. And that's where you're on today, because the circle comes right back, and instead of coming back to the full circle, it goes within you, start to spiral in it. So as you spiral in, you're giving back out, and you're learning something else and something more. And so here you are at the Wacol Immigration Camp. All your family's got is basically accommodation for beds, and you have to step outside to go off to the ablution blocks and to the kitchens, and they're all shared facilities. And we just played these facilities that have been given. They're not being used. I tell you what, we're in a different. We've lost the PhD in common sense.
Crazy.
Yeah. So I hope that guy, that mayor, we gave a bit of promotion there to promote it. So hopefully his people knock on your door and ask if you can help and assist, because that would be of some benefit. And that's what. And we didn't even start with that concept today when we talked about coming on and doing the show. Ian, is there something else I need to ask you that I should have asked you that I haven't asked you that needs to be said?
No, Jeff, it's just, we just got to be who we are. And I saw a movie a long time ago which affected me as well. It was called Pay It Forward. Right? If you can do something for someone else, do it. All businessmen are not crooks. There's some good business people that want to help people. And I will go out of my way with any client, and so will my son, to help them get what they want. And so it's just called paying it forward, mate. I'm lucky. I've got everything I need. So there's not much more you can say to that. It's just do the right thing, stay positive, and things will work out.
That's the mantra. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jeff.
And it's been a pleasure. All right. Thank you, folks. And with a bit of luck next week, our co-host from the UK, Andrina Forrest, will be back in, and she might give us a little heads up about Egypt. But in the meantime, it's been my privilege to have Ian. And for the last 3 weeks, it's just been Jeff on his Pat Malone. But we've had some really interesting guests. And so thank Andrina for giving me that opportunity. Paying it forward. All right. Love your work. Thank you very much, Ian.